Hello?
Hey Don, good morning.
Hello?
Hello.
Good evening.
Hey Don, just wait for like a couple of minutes for everybody to join.
Hello.
Can you hear us well, Don?
Good evening.
Or anybody?
Yes, I'm adjusting my
Hey Don, just wait for like a couple of minutes for everybody to join.
Hello.
Am I audible as well?
Yes. Can you hear us well, Don?
Good evening.
Or anybody?
Yes, I'm adjusting my
Hey Don, just wait for like a couple of minutes for everybody to join.
Hello.
Am I audible as well?
Yes. Can you hear us well, Don?
Good evening.
Or anybody?
Yes, I'm adjusting my
Hey Don, just wait for like a couple of minutes for everybody to join.
Hello.
Am I audible as well?
Yes. Can you hear us well, Don?
Good evening.
Or anybody?
Yes, I'm adjusting my
Hey Don, just wait for like a couple of minutes for everybody to join.
Hello.
Am I audible as well?
Yes. Can you hear us well, Don?
Good evening.
Or anybody?
Yes, I'm adjusting my
Hey Don, just wait for like a couple of minutes for everybody to join.
Hello.
Am I audible as well?
Yes. Can you hear us well, Don?
Good evening.
Or anybody?
Yes, I'm adjusting my
Hey Don, just wait for like a couple of minutes for everybody to join.
Hello.
Am I audible as well?
Yes. Can you hear us well, Don?
Good evening.
Or anybody?
Yes, I'm adjusting my
Hey Don, just wait for like a couple of minutes for everybody to join.
Hello.
So hey all, am I audible?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you for joining. So and we are FOF Kozhikode and we are thrilled to be here with you. So we are about to have an exciting discussion.
hey all,
Don audible. And so without further ado, let's dive into the discussion. So I would like to welcome. Thank you for joining. So we are FOF Kozhikode and we are thrilled to be here with you. And so we are about to have an exciting discussion. So hey all, Don audible. And so without further ado,
Thank you for
dive into the
So, hey everyone,
to welcome.
and
Thank you for joining.
welcome to the Design Spotlight. I honestly don't think I need to say an introduction here, but today is a very special, a really special day for all of us. Thank you for because we have someone, hey everyone, who has literally shaped the way millions of us think about design. I want Don Norman. He's the author of multiple books that have become foundational for designers around the world. Like the design of everyday things, the emotional design, and the latest book, Design for Better World. But beyond these books, Don is someone who will always work across multiple disciplines. He started as an electrical engineer, then became a cognitive psychologist, and then somehow managed he and his team focuses on using design to tackle real systemic issues like sustainability to healthcare to public policies. But here is what I love the most. Just when you think he has done enough, Don shows up with a bold new lens. The lens that zooms out, one that says, hey, what if design wasn't just for users, but for the entire humanity? So today, we are not just going to talk about design systems or toolkits or frameworks, etc. We're going to talk about systems that shape the society, about education, about ethics, about responsibility, and how we, as designers, can do better for the whole of humanity. So please join me in welcoming the legend himself, Don Norman. Cool.
Thank
I
you,
can see a lot of reaction. Yes. Before we dive in, just a quick note for everyone joining us today. Please keep yourself mute to avoid any disturbances. And we'll be opening up a segment towards the end of the session for us, for you all to ask Don your questions. So as we go along, feel free to jot down anything that sparks your curiosity. When we get to the Q&A session, try to keep your questions short and focused so that we can get to as many as possible, as it's a very rare chance that we have got here. So you can drop your questions in the chat as well. We will be keeping an eye on them. So all right. With that said, let's jump in. And I would love to invite my co-host Ruby to kick things off.
Okay, thanks, Arun. Welcome, Don. This is a great moment for us. I'll dive right in, and I want to start with the buzzword AI. There is so much energy around it, and which is exciting. But I personally am noticing a shift. Earlier, we used to start by thinking about the problem, the people we are designing for first, and then the how came later. Now it's often the other way around. I hear more of how are we leveraging AI? In this wave of AI driven thinking, I want to ask how can we make sure that keeping humanity at the center doesn't just become a nice to have?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Um, Obviously, AI would have to come up in this talk. I didn't expect it to be first, but let me remind you that AI has been around for 50 years or more. But what's new about it is the new, basically deep learning, extremely large neural networks, where we're talking about not thousands of units, not millions, not billions, but trillions. That's 1,000 billion, or if you like, it's a million thousands. So this has changed things, but this is very young. And it's really wrong to try to judge what is happening by what is happening today, because it's only been around a few years, and any new technology takes a very long time for people to understand it, and for the technology itself to get better and evolve, and to make actually something that people can really use appropriately. Because in the beginning of any new technology, in the history of technology, at first, the emphasis, as you pointed out, is on the technology itself. But after the technology has sort of we got used to it, and as it gets better, then we move to not the technology, because we no longer worry about pencils, typewriters, even keyboards. Those are just accepted. And so what we worry about is what problem are we trying to address? And I really feel that's going to happen. But let me back up a little bit, because we have had many technology revolutions in the history of humankind. The invention of language was perhaps the most important, and maybe the next most important was the invention of writing and printing. And since then, there's been a large number of inventions that have changed the world. This one, I think, will also change the world. This is one of the most important changes we've ever had, because for the first time, we have intelligent things that we have ourselves built, but they are they are so complex that the people who build them do not understand how they work, because they're not as complicated as a human brain, but they're getting there. When you have trillions of weights, what's called numerical values, that are controlling what is happening. Trillions? Who can understand that? We don't even know how big that number is. It's huge. So it is doing things that have surprised everybody. It surprised the people who invented it. It surprised me. And actually, the invention started in my laboratory. Many years ago, we were starting a new cognitive science program, and we brought in some new people who just got their PhDs but hadn't yet done much work. And we were starting to explain the work that we were doing this time, the cognitive science group at University of California, San Diego, in California, United States. And I was giving a little lecture about what we were doing, and one of these new people said, "No, you're wrong." United States, and well, I like it when people tell me I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, well, I want to know, and I'll change. And but this person who came from England started telling us some of the new work being done in Europe, and my colleague David Rummelhart decided that this was something important to work on. And I too thought it was important, but I was already very busy trying to establish a field that is today called human-computer interaction. So I watched and I, followed along with them, but I did not actually help develop the systems. That was the first neural network with 3 layers. And the important algorithm called backpropagation was invented by David Rummelhart. And the person who interrupted was Jeff Hinton. Jeff Hinton just received the Nobel Prize for his work in developing neural networks. And I recently met Jeff and I said, so what's the difference today between what you did and what is happening today? They look very much the same. And he pointed out that the real difference, he said, was not that we had new knowledge. It's that the computers of today are 1 million times more powerful than the computers they started with when they developed 3 levels of processing. Today we have 20, 50, 100 levels of processing. And instead of having 20 nodes, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of them. So the technology has aided this. But I also want to remind you that we are in the middle of many technology revolutions. We have new kinds of materials. We're trying actually to make new materials that are better for the planet. So they're biodegradable materials. They're getting rid of concrete, using more natural things, using material that will degrade by itself. And basically it's because it's biologically inspired and may even come from biology. We are also new methods of manufacturing. You all are aware of 3D printing or what's called additive manufacturing, because that allows us to build things with holes inside, build things that are lighter, stronger, cheaper than what we can do today, because we can make things that's impossible to make today. And we have new kinds of sensors, so we can sense what goes on in the body, sometimes by putting them inside the body, but more and more with sensors outside the body. We have sensors in satellites and sensors in drones that are wonderful for agriculture, that are for weather forecasting. And there are just many different revolutions. Obviously also in communications, many different ways of communicating, and in computation, not just AI, but in computation in general. And so this is a really exciting period. Now,
Sorry.
Well, yeah, interrupt. Go on.
Okay. No, since you have mentioned Jeff Hinton here, I know it has been a great, revolution. But he was a person who, he is considered to be one of the godfathers of the modern AI. But he later stepped back and said that this should have never happened when it comes to the AI, because he later went on to quit Google and spoke openly about how AI could spread misinformation at a scale we have never seen before. So, where is this world going? When somebody like that, somebody like him is saying that it's troublesome, it's actually taking the world into a wrong direction as well. So, I can ask it in 2 perspectives, like one for the Indian humanity as well as from a designer's point of view, as designers and technologists. How do we even begin to deal with that kind of a threat when AI-generated content feels so real and it looks so real and spreads faster than truth?
Well, Jeff Hinton is one of the, he's an unusual person. He's probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. And he's also funny, humorous, deep thinker. I think he's wrong. I think he's right to worry about these things. But, yeah, this will merge into what I was going to say anyway. I think that what happens in any technology, as I said earlier, the emphasis is on the technology. And many of the people who built these AIs are people who didn't understand the world. They just understood computer science, programming, mathematics. And I think that's where the problem is. I think the problem is not so much in the AI systems. It's the way they are being built and the way they are being deployed. And in part, by the way, it's because these systems are so very expensive, incredibly expensive to train and even to operate, that costs and costs have become very important. And then the very, very large companies who are spending billions of dollars, American dollars, to build these systems, that they are starting to emphasize the cost and the profits. And I think that can lead to difficulty as well when you put profits and cost before humanity. And so that's where I think the issues are. And that there are now many people across the world trying to do AI for humanity, AI for people. And that's, I'll talk about that in a minute. But let me just give you one other point that you may all be worried about. Will AI take away your job? And the answer is yes, unless you become an expert in using AI. And let me tell you about the history of photography and art. When photography first happened, the artists were horrified. Photography will destroy art. Because how did artists make their money? They made their money mainly by painting landscapes, pictures of nature, and by painting pictures of people. And one of the things you learned in art was how to make your drawings, your art, as realistic as possible. And the camera, the photographs can do that better than the artists can. So artists were out of a job. All the ones who made their living drawing, making portraits of people, they hardly exist today. And the ones who made their living doing landscapes, well, traditional landscapes, they do exist. You'll see those paintings in hotel rooms all over the place. But art was actually in trouble. But you know what? People are creative. So artists said, well, okay, let the camera take a picture of the world, take a picture of people, but I'll draw a picture of what the person really looks like to me. And Picasso, for example, said, people sometimes they're angry, sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're sad, sometimes they are sick, sometimes they're healthy, and their faces change. So I'll draw a picture of the face that has all of these, all the different faces, but all in one picture. So what happened was creativity in art really increased. There was a big jump in creativity. And what we see in art today is things that it's whatever the imagination of the artist. And new artists are even using all the advanced technology to do wonderful new things. And so that's what I expect with AI. It will be a tool that will enable us. It will take away a lot of the drudgery of the work that we do today. And will enable us to spend more time thinking not about how to do the shading and how to do the drawing or what the shape should be or what this or that or the other. It will make us think about what are the problems we're trying to solve and how do I express it? And yes, I'll use the AI as a tool, just like I use CAD system today and drawing programs today to make it as a tool. But I have to tell it what to do, and I have to tell it, oh, what you did is very nice, but it's wrong. It's not what we want. It's not the right thing. And when we talked about the fact that AI could be harmful, well, all new technologies have the opportunity to be good for society or bad for society. But it's up to us to make sure it's good for society. And that's our opportunity. And so one more point. We should not be reacting to what AI is doing and saying, oh, how do I do that? Oh, why do they do this? Why aren't more of us working for the AI companies, helping to design the AI so it is designed to work with people as a collaborator? because the two combined, AI plus people, are much more powerful than either alone. And we're going to guide it towards making life better for people. And I see that movement happening all around the world. And I think that's what Jeff Hinton was talking about as well, is we need to do more of that. Now, a similar problem happened in biology when we started to manipulate genes and basically change the nature of life in many ways. And so the biologists all met, or senior biologists met. They met for quite a while, and they established a set of procedures and ethical guidelines to guide the way we develop new developments in biology. And we're starting to do that in AI as well.
Don, I have a question. So you mentioned about the collaboration that, hey, we as designers must collaborate with AI and not think that, hey, it will take our jobs. When AI is collaborating or is making decisions as well on behalf of humans, how do you see this collaboration turning? Because a lot of training and shaping of these systems happen by, let's say, engineers or techies or data scientists. So where do you see designers' role shifting here in this context?
Well, actually, the system builders don't tell the AI how to make decisions. In fact, the fact that AI is making decisions and moving in new directions has been a surprise to everyone. And I've been reading some very recent papers about what people are discovering about how the systems are working, which is really quite amazing. And I really would recommend people to follow up what's going on inside understanding how the systems are working. But they're very complex, and so it's not easy to control the decision making. But it's still but we still build the systems. We're still responsible for feeding it the knowledge from which it learns about the world. And so more and more, for example, in medical systems and specialized areas, if you feed it only reliable information, then it comes back and it's very reliable. Today, we know that it can be wrong and makes up things, but in part because it's read basically almost everything written mostly in English, but as many languages as they could find. But a lot of what it reads is nonsense. Because a lot of what people write is nonsense, and a lot of it is filled with lies and filled with false statements. And of course, it's got all of that inside of it. Well, we can start building systems that don't have that inside of them. So, yeah.
Cool. I think the topic AI is kind of conquering all of us over this discussion as well. So let me take it one step back and bring it back to humanity. So Don, you have been one of the earliest and strongest voice behind human-centered design, something that you popularized with your works, your thoughts, your writings, etc., even from the early 80s. But now you have been urging us to go beyond that, to think bigger, to design not just for users, but for humanity as a whole. So I'm really curious, what sparked that shift for you personally? What was that particular moment or an experience that realized or made you feel, this isn't enough anymore. We have to move beyond that.
Yeah, well, when I moved into the design field, it was in the early days of computers. And in fact, the reason I got into it by accident, by using the early Unix systems and always making errors and never remembering exactly how each of the commands worked, because every little system had different ways of doing the commands. And so everybody made errors, not just me. There was no consistency to it. And it just wasn't bad. It was badly designed for people. And that led me to write a paper called The Trouble with Unix, which, Unix was developed as a research project at the Bell Telephone Laboratories in the United States. It was just developed for the researchers, the few people in the laboratories, to run on some of the early computers. And that's why it wasn't, nobody cared about the details and making it easy for everybody in the world. Nobody thought everybody in the world would use it. And so my paper was not popular. They discovered my paper. This was the early days of the internet. It was not even called the internet in those days. My university was one of the very few places that was part of the internet. But what happened was that I had written the paper, but it was still on my computer. But somebody found it and sent it off to the people at Bell Labs, and they were very upset. But they called, one of my former students was working in that group. So he said they should invite me to come and give a talk. And I did. And there they realized that what I was saying was not as horrible as they thought. That I was, after I was trained as an electrical engineer, I could speak their language. And that was, I think, in part the beginning of trying to make sure these systems were what people could do. In the early text editor, if you spent 2 or 3 hours typing a manuscript or a computer program or something, and then you said, hurrah, I'm finally finished. And you went home and went to bed, and you came back the next day, and where is it? Didn't exist. And the answer was, well, you didn't save it. Did you save it? No, I just went home. Oh, if you didn't save it, we don't have it anymore. If you wanted to stay, you have to say save. And but that was because you could turn off the computer, you could turn off the program, and it didn't say, do you want to save your work? So that sort of simple thing, they thought that was a joke, that actually, sometimes people even lose all their work because they forget to save, ha ha. So that was the attitude. And so in some sense, that was the beginning of human-centered design, that we must take into account not the technology, but how people use the system. And I keep telling engineers, people are not logical. The problem with the way engineers think is you're too logical. Logic was invented by philosophers and mathematicians. It's not how people think. So don't make your systems very logical. Make them so that they actually work with real people. Okay, so I did now quick over history. That was in the 1970s and 80s, as you say. That was what, 70 years ago? No, 40 or 50 years ago.
50 years ago, yeah.
So, and finally in 1988, I wrote the first edition of this book. And now this is the one that was done more recently. And it's all about human-centered design. Today, I say, human-centered design, it's wrong. So this book is wrong. Now, what's wrong about the book? Nothing. There's nothing in the book that's wrong. I believe everything in the book. I still teach it. I still think it's important. What's wrong is what's not in the book. And what's not in the book is how we destroy the environment to get the wonderful materials that make our computers thin and light and beautiful, how we destroy the environment in manufacturing it, where we're destroying the air, the land, and the water. We make these things so they don't last very long because companies make their money by selling new products. The automobile industry started this. They wanted you to buy a new car every 5 years or so. And so every year they would make advances in the car, very minor ones, but every 5 years or so they would make a major change. And not because they knew how or not because of anything, except that they wanted you to buy a new one. And they wanted the new cars to look different than the old one. So everybody would say, oh, you're driving an old car. And what do you do with the old car? And so that's what happened in the computer field. We want to buy new computers every couple of years, and your mobiles every 2 years, something new comes out.
Yes.
So why can't we make them so they're repairable, so they're upgradable, they last longer? Why can't we make them so that the parts can be reused again? But the way it's done now, you can't reuse them. In India, there are piles of electronic junk. that
Yes.
sometimes burning because as they get older, the batteries catch fire. The one I've seen is an Ahmedabad. You're in the very far south. That's in the north of India. But why do we do that? Also, people who do digital technology say, "Oh well, we don't destroy the world. We don't design physical products." Well, every digital tool works on a physical product. So no, you are not exempt. Second of all, what you do is you try to make the products addictive. You try to make them so people never get away from it. You try to make it so you're destroying cultures. And first of all, you're destroying young people as they grow up who are just addicted to games, addicted to the social networks. Older people too, by the way. And second, the emphasis on the Western way of thinking and the Western way of doing things has destroyed very valuable cultures from all around the world. And that's the history of colonialism, where countries mostly from the West, mostly from Europe, but that includes the United States. So when we talk about Western cultures, we're not talking about West as a geography, but as a notion of the big technology-driven, rich countries that have come and taken over other countries. You know, the British went into India and said, "Oh, you don't know how to rule yourself. We'll rule India for you." Isn't that nice? Well, so that is a problem. And what happened was, people have been pointing this out for many, many years. I'm fond of saying that I'm looking for the book, can't find it. Victor Papanek, a designer, wrote a book in 1970 complaining about the destruction to the world that we are creating by our designs. And he said, there is no field more harmful than design. So
Wow.
It took me, that was the first sentence of his book, by the way. I repeat that sentence in my latest book. Now, I think he was partially right and partially wrong, and I'll get back to why he was wrong. But I wasn't aware of all of this. When I wrote these books, when I did my earlier work in design, I worked at Apple and I helped people like Johnny Ive design these beautiful, wonderful computers, but we still made sure they were easy to use. Unfortunately, when Apple changed so that actually they put Johnny Ive in charge of all of design, and that was a mistake because all fields are complex. Any field, computer science. There's nobody in computer science who understands all of computer science, from the theoretical side of computer science to the programming side and programming languages and other things that go on in computer science. They're very different. And same is true in design. Graphical design is different than industrial design, which is different than interaction design. And so I think Johnny Ive is one of the most brilliant industrial designers, but he doesn't understand people. And so his job was to make things beautiful. And one of the things that he thought was not beautiful was words. So you've noticed new Apple computers don't have no labels. It's all gestures. The old computer, the old, Mac, the Macintosh, well, there's a menu you pull down and it reminds you of what the commands are. And you don't have to remember them. And
Yes.
but now you have to swipe. You have to swipe from the top down, or from the middle of the top down, or maybe from the bottom up, or from the right to right to left, left to right. One finger, two fingers, a long tap, a short tap, double tap. Who can remember them? Not me.
Correct. Correct.
So
Correct.
it's getting worse. But so that's human-centered design, and that's where our emphasis was. But it was during COVID, when I couldn't travel anymore, and I was starting to rethink everything. And then later on, I had started the design lab at UC San Diego. I had retired 4 times before that. This was I was appointed I had left the UC San Diego in 1993 to join Apple. I retired for the first time in 1993. And now it was in the 21st century, and I was yet again working at my University of California, San Diego. So I was appointed for 5 years to start the design lab. And in year 7 of my 5-year appointment, I said, okay, time for me to retire the 5th time, the 2nd time from UC San Diego. And we did. We got a new director and so on. But because I had set up a laboratory, I think I set it up so it could work well, and I think it's doing brilliantly right now. But what was I going to do? And I decided that what I really am good at is I'm an educator about writing books and teaching students and talking to groups like this. But these books are very important in making things easier to use, but the world has many, many problems, and sustainability was becoming a major issue in climate change. And the way that that designers are colonialists. A colonialist is someone from a distance who comes in and says, oh, I understand your problem. Here's what you should do. And a lot of foreign aid is done that way. You bring in the experts to see what they should do. But the problem is experts are experts. They understand the problems. Their solution is sensible. But what they don't understand is the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so quite often the things that they've designed are not useful in the environment. They often are Western requirements. It requires air conditioning, and it requires constant use of electricity, clean water, all sorts of things that are not available in many communities. And so that's when I decided it was time to change what I was doing. And then I spent several years working, reading, talking to many people, traveling around the world, and came up with this book, which is very different than anything else, because in which I start off talking about history, about colonialism, about designers don't be colonialists. Human-centered design is colonialism. But what we do is we find and understand the problem, we come back and think hard about what the solution should be, and then we build it. And yeah, we talk to people to find out what the problem is, and also then we test it afterwards to make sure it's usable. But at that point, it's too late for anybody to change it and say, oh no, that's not the way we actually like to live. And so I said, it's time to design for humanity, for all people, taking into account destruction of the environment, taking into account destruction of other living things like plants and other animals, and taking into account of cultures. And a lot of what we are doing today in the world is wrong. The economic system is wrong. The politics are wrong. The emphasis on profit is wrong. And so that was this book, Design for a Better World. And it has to be humanity-centered.
Great.
Now, humanity-centered, by the way, humanity-centered is basically this, human-centered, plus this bigger picture. So I call human-centered design HCD. Everybody does. So I call humanity-centered design HCD plus.
Beautiful. That's great. Now, sorry if I'm interrupting, but you actually mentioned about two main issues when you were actually explaining. One is towards the ethical side, where people are getting addicted, and the designers are the primal cause of that. And then about the sustainability and the humanity side. I think I'll try to mix up this question, or I'll stick to the ethical side. So, you mentioned about this, hijack attention or algorithms that isolate people, who are often creating experiences that are addictive or even damaging the mental health and the culture. So do you think most of us in the design world are unaware of this, or are we quietly avoiding the harder questions because it's uncomfortable, or because we feel like we don't have the power to change it? Because just like you said, the economics, the money is actually riding things in a way. So how should we designers change it? Can we influence it? Yeah.
So the answer to all of your questions is yes. So I said that Papanek was wrong when he said that designers are the most evil field in the world. Because the problem is that because you said it yourself, designers don't have much power. Designers in the university design group is never the most important topic in the university. Today, maybe computer science is, not design. Technology is, not design. Design is a field that focuses upon making things for people. And we worry a lot about making lives better. And we're the only field that creates things with that in mind, that we actually build things. There are other fields that study it. There are other fields that talk about it. The fields in the humanities do a lot of talking and writing about this. But design is unusual, that we are actually building things and creating things. But we have no power. And in companies, designers are almost never at the top executive level. Now, they are in a small company, like a design company. But in large companies, it's very rare. Do we have chief design officers? Very, very rare in large companies. Now, why is that? Designers come to me and they say, how come the administration doesn't take us seriously? We have good ideas and they never pay attention to them. And I say, well, tell me how you explain it. And they say, we show them the models, we show them the pictures, and we show them even mock-ups. And we also tell them that all the prizes we've won and, we're doing good work. Well, my answer to that is, I was a business executive. And if you would have come to me like that, I would listen to you and I would say, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Of course, you're really very good. We know that. That's why we hired you. But now, excuse me, I must get back to work. Because if you want to convince business, you have to say something that is useful to the business. Don't tell them you have great ideas. That's okay. But what do you do with that great idea? What you want to do is you say, look, it's a really good idea, and we believe that lots of people would like it. And if we actually manufactured and sold it, here, look, and you use a spreadsheet and numbers. And you say, look how sales will increase. Look how the amount of money you're making will increase. Look how the costs will actually decrease. And we'll design it so that it's easier to use and nobody has questions about it. So the amount of money you spend answering people's questions on service lines, that will go down. And you have numbers to show. And everybody says, well, where do you get the numbers from? It's a new thing. How do we know how many people will buy it? Well, there's a division in the company usually called marketing. And marketing is the one that comes in and says, those designs, we have to add these 3 new features. And the designers say, ooh, they're horrible. But the marketing wins. And why? Because that's what marketing does. Marketing goes to the executive and says, look, if we add these features, here's how sales will increase. And people really want these features, and they show why people might want the features. Now, it turns out that people do say they want it, and they buy the system because it's there, even though they may never use it. And more on top, worse, the features make life more difficult. So I say, how does marketing win? Well, where do they get the numbers? They make them up.
Correct.
So why don't you make them up? And if you don't know how, why don't you become friends with marketing and have them help you? Because look, you make them up and you tell them to the executives. Executives are not stupid. First of all, they used to do this themselves. And second of all, if you're doing a new product, there's nothing else you can do. You don't really know what the sales will be. So the executives are going to say, okay, that's very interesting, but I see these numbers. Where did they come from? What assumptions did you make? Are they reasonable? And you have to have a good answer for that. You have to show that, yes, this is based on the following research, and this is why this, that, and the other. So first of all, that's the way to move up in the company. If you do that enough times, pretty soon they'll say, well, we should move you up to be a vice president so you have some say in what's happening. And then maybe if, again, the vice president get joined to the C-suite. But to do that, you have to stop being a designer. And so many designers are so proud of their abilities to do designs, they don't want to move up to administration. And many times designers do get promoted to this position, but they're not ready for it. And so they hate it. And they want to go back so they can do design.
Yes.
I'm trying to tell you, everybody, not everybody has to do this. We still need great designers who stay doing design. But in every group, there ought to be one or two people who go and take business courses, learn about other things, learn about supply chain and the issues, learn about materials. And that's how you move up in the company. And if enough people do that, designers will finally have some power. The same is true in government. There's a slide, why do governments make laws without ever talking to the people that the laws impact or policies? Well, there are a few countries, the two that I know of are England and Ireland, so they're both in the UK, who actually are now hiring designers into government to help them create policies. Human-centered design, humanity-centered design is actually powerful when you're devising policies. And so I think designers have to change and design education has to change, and STEM education, science, technology, engineering, math, is wrong. Wrong, not right, wrong. Why is it wrong? Well, there's nothing about people in it. On top of that, it emphasizes these disconnect. When you learn science, you don't learn science. You learn biology, or you learn computer science, or you learn a topic. And even that topic has many specialized disciplines. But if you're a designer, you're making things. And being an expert on some very narrow topic does not make you can't make anything. You need all sorts of other fields to come together. So designers have to learn to work with the people who understand materials, with the people who do manufacturing, with the engineers who do the programming or the mechanical engineering design, with the salespeople who try to sell it, with the marketing people, with the finance people, because money is important. It shouldn't be the most important thing. So, and most companies are worried primarily about profits and schedules, because scheduling determines their profits, and costs. And those are important. They really are. And you have to learn the importance. What they don't worry about, though, so much is humanity, about people, about making life good for their employees, their customers, and the people where the company is located, the community. And designers can play that role in helping. And that's what I'm hoping for. By the way, to the audience, I've already warned my moderators that I give very long answers to questions, and you're getting used to it, I guess.
I have a fun question. Yeah, I have a fun question for you, Don. We knew about Norman Design Award. What goes into winning one? Like what key takeaways, or what things a designer has to take care to get one?
Well, a few years ago, some of my friends, actually, almost all my friends originally came from India, wanted to do an award in my honor. And I resisted it for a while, but they always thought we should get some money together and we'll give an award to some famous designer for doing really good work in the world. And I said, no. When you're famous, you can get an award. It doesn't change anything. You get a trophy and you come home and you say, oh, this award is very nice, but there's no room. I have so many trophies, I don't know where to put it. That doesn't change what you do. And when do you really need an award? An award is when you start out. That's when you need to be encouraged and say, hey, that's really good work. Or it has great promise. It's not there yet, but that's a really good start. So that's what we decided to do. We decided that we would reward early career people just starting out, doing something for societal good. It had to be one of the United Nations 16 basic societal needs. And they had to use humanity-centered design. It could be called something else, but they had to follow the principles that are basically were that. And to our great surprise, when we started this and announced it, and it's based on the principles in my book, Design for a Better World, but nobody knew about it. But last year we had hundreds of people applying, And we had a really great conference at the end of the year where we presented awards, and also it was I made the conference call it a learning experience. We brought in very experienced people like the Aga Khan Foundation and other big foundations to tell us not what they did right, but what they did wrong. To say, we did this and we had this problem and this and it didn't work, and here's why, and here's what we learned from it. Because what you want is you learn more from people's errors, and if you can get famous people, well-known and experienced people to say, we didn't do it right, we made errors, that also is encouraging to younger people just starting out that, yeah, everybody makes errors, that working for society betterment really is helpful for everybody. Now, who wins? We don't have any rules. We look to see the kind of work you're doing. And so one of our top prizes, we only gave 2 or 3 last year, 3 to be exact, we called it excellence, is from a group in Mumbai. And they were actually they're not really in Mumbai, they're just north. I forget the name of the location, but it's like a 9-hour car drive from Mumbai. It's halfway between Mumbai and Ahmedabad. And there's basically nothing there. And but they didn't have good health care, and they didn't have mental health care, and they had a number of depressed people in the village. And what they did was the villagers got together and they just took care of those people. They danced, they sung, they visited them every day, they brought them food, they gave them reassurance. And there's this wonderful example they had of someone who was depressed and just sat and huddled, and as a result, he lost all his mobility. He could no longer move. Basically, he couldn't walk. But the more they came by and cheered him up, they could see he was getting more cheerful, and they realized he used to be a musician. So they bought a very inexpensive keyboard, one of those little cheap keyboards. You hit the key and it makes a note. And eventually, he was able to raise his finger and hit a key. Boom. And over time, he could move more fingers, and then he could play music, and then he could sit up straight, and then people could help him stand up, and once they helped him get up, he could actually stay standing. And it was just wonderful, and it was just done by the people in the village. And that's the important point. It was done, no outside group came in and did it for them. It was done by them. Now, they actually did work with another foundation that helps some of the costs and sometimes some of the technical information they needed about diseases and mental problems, but they did it by themselves. And in fact, I'm hoping to visit them in October because I'm an advisor to BITS Design School in Mumbai, my school that just opened up, which is going to have very new and different and exciting curriculum. I'm helping design it. And so as long as I'm in Mumbai, I'm going to visit.
Beautiful.
That's amazing.
Great.
But so the point is, we wouldn't have predicted that. So when you ask me what kind of things win the awards, we would not have predicted. We also gave awards to educational institutions that teach people to do this. And everybody has to have evidence that they're doing well. And the best thing for an educational institution is they have graduates who already are doing this kind of work. And so we gave awards to a number of universities, schools in India. Mind you, they're all private schools because the government regulations, the government-run schools are less flexible in what they should teach. Whereas the new universities, they can do whatever they want. So Flame University in Pune, for example, and the Design Village in Noida were really brilliant. And so we gave them rewards.
Okay. So Don, a lot of audience is actually jumping to and ask you questions, but I have one more question before we jump to them. And I think we have already taken a permission to extend the session a bit more. I hope it is fine with you, Don. My question to you, or the last question from us moderators are, let us talk a bit about user experience as well. And by the way, thank you, Don, for giving us that term to put in our job titles. As you can see, a lot of the users here, or the audience here, have put in UX along with their names. And myself included, have been lucky to build meaningful careers and earn a livelihood as UX designers because of it. And we have followed your principles every step of the way. So really, we are grateful and we owe it to you. But lately, you have mentioned that the term has been misused or stretched in ways you didn't quite intend it. So I am curious here, how do we get back to the heart of what UX really means? And how do we make sure we are actually practicing it in the spirit it was actually created?
Yeah, when I joined Apple, I thought actually the usability was starting to go downhill a little bit, and there wasn't enough attention paid to the experience people had. So, for example, the early computers came in big boxes, but if you bought it in the store, how do you get it to your home? It turned out that, yeah, people in America all have cars, so you drive the car up, but the box wouldn't fit in the car. But why? I mean, it turns out that there's a lot of empty space in these big boxes. So you could design the box so it would fit in everybody's car. And when you open the box, what did you see? Ooh, manual and all sorts of stuff that makes it, oh, I'm afraid to even take it out and use it. And so the whole point was to design it so that it was really pleasant. I remember I was asked by another company to evaluate their, not when I was working for Apple, but when I was a consultant, to evaluate their work. It was, I forget the name of the company. They made a camera. It was an Asian company, and I said, okay, I want you to send me the camera as if I had just bought it by mail, and you're going to send it to me over, by mail, and I'll open the package and experience it. Well, okay, it arrives. I say, oh, wonderful. And I open the box, and first I see it's a CD-ROM, which you don't have to worry about what that is, but it's as if there was a memory stick on the top, or maybe a QR code on the top, which would say, there's no manual, but just a QR code. And if you want to know how to use this, well, you have to use the QR code to go to the internet and get the instruction manual. That's crazy. That destroys the experience. Second of all, you couldn't even see the product. I bought the product. When I opened the box, why don't I see the product? And so I take away that, and I take away the other, all sorts of stuff before I can see the product. And then I take the product out. There's a camera. Oh, it's beautiful. But there's a sign on it that says, before you use this, charge the batteries for 2 hours or something. And why can't I use it right away? Why can't you ship it with a battery that works? And so maybe it doesn't have much energy, but it'll let me take 1 or 2 pictures. And that's what Apple does. It used to be when people bought an Apple product, I went around and I said, when you buy something and it comes in a box, do you keep the boxes? And almost everybody would say, no, we throw it away, or maybe we go use it to store something else in. When you open up an Apple box, do you keep the box? Oh, yes, we always keep Apple boxes. They made sure the box was beautiful and the opening experience was wonderful, and you immediately saw the product, and the product would work immediately.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's good experience. And so, see, notice I'm not even talking about the product itself. I'm talking about how it's the outside stuff around it. So to me, user experience was everything: how you learned about it, how you first got it, how you were able to buy it. When you opened the box, did you immediately know how to use it? Was it worthwhile? When you have problems and you call up for help, do they really help you? And how do you dispose of it at the end? And how do you update it? All those things. The best experiences come from the theater. Go to a theater. they worry a lot about what it's like for all the people sitting in the seats. And I don't mean the movie theater, I mean live theater. And the lighting, the sound, the way the actors approach it, or go to a theme park, go to a Disney park or some other park where there's a tremendous amount of attention paid to waiting in lines. You wait in lines because they don't have enough rides for everybody, but Disney tries to make those lines enjoyable. And that's what I call experience design. And user experience, today it means I do an app or I do a website. No, that's not what we're talking about. So I'm trying to say, I'm going to get rid of the term. I want to just say I'm an experience designer. I design wonderful, emotionally pleasant experiences. Emotionally pleasant, by the way, is difficult because I can, some of the wonderful rides in amusement parks, like a roller coaster or so on, frighten you. And that's a good experience because you know you're going to be frightened. And so it's really good to have had that wonderful, scary experience and come out saying, oh yeah, that was horrible. I want to do it again.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to convince the Nielsen Norman Group, and I think they've been convinced that we should stop saying we are user experience designers. We are experience designers.
Good. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Cool. So let me open it up for the audience here. So I will request the audience, whoever is coming in to ask questions to Don, please keep it very short and not very short, like short and clear.
Give me time to be very wrong. Yes.
Yes. The first one got the time. Sujish Joy, if you care to come on screen and please ask your question. I think it's a very...
Yeah, thank you, Arun. And thanks, Don, for joining us on a lovely evening with us and a morning for you. So this is a very basic human behavior question. So you said like admitting a mistake or things we have done wrongly is a great thing, right? So what are some of the design mistakes from your own career that taught you the most? And what is the reason that you felt admitting the same is really important in your career?
Oh, I make lots and lots of mistakes. And some of them I don't want to talk about because they involve people. But I'll just give you two simple stories. One is not mine, but a friend of mine is David Kelly. He's the person who started and was the head of the design company IDEO. And he's the person who popularized design thinking at Stanford University in the United States, in what he calls the D School. So he's a great designer. And I used to live in Palo Alto within walking distance of the company. So they even gave me a key to the company. I could get in even at night or the weekends. And one day he called me into his office and said, I want to show you something. And he showed me a telephone. He said, look at this telephone. I designed it. What was I thinking? It's crazy. Nobody ever liked it. Nobody ever used it. You can't use it. It's beautiful to look at, but to use it, you have to pick it up and turn it over, and you dial the number from the buttons on the bottom, and then you have to hold it up to your ear, and what was I thinking? And I thought that was wonderful, that here's one of the best designers in the world telling me that he had done a really stupid design. And because that's how we learn. I say, if you don't fail periodically, you're not trying hard enough. So, and here's another one where what I did was I thought that the operating system could be better. It wasn't designed for the way people really work. It was designed as if I'm doing a problem, I'm doing a task, and I start at doing the task and I don't go, and I do it uninterruptedly until I'm all finished. Well, that's not true. Most important tasks can take a week. Of course it's going to get interrupted. I have to go eat, I have to go do, but I have other things to do as well. And so I have to, use the computer for other things, and now I can't find the stuff I was working on. And I carefully set up the screen with all the stuff organized in the way I'm using it. And now I have to get rid of it to do this other task. And then I come back and have to remember what I was doing. Why can't we design it for people who are interrupted and make it so it's easy to go back and forth, etc. And we called it ABC, activity-based computing. And I was at Apple, and I asked for permission, and I got a group of about 30 people together. So that's a pretty big group, expensive. And we spent, I don't know, 6 months or so designing a new kind of interacting with computers, which I thought was wonderful and powerful and important. And then I was an executive at that point myself, but I brought it to my other executives to approve that we should actually make this into a product. And they said, no, what I did was a waste of time. And they agreed there were really important insights in there, and it was well done, and it was exciting. But look, we sell the Macintosh in those days. And this is so different that who would buy it? They wouldn't understand it. And they were right that we had paid a lot of attention to making it fit the needs of people, but we didn't make it fit the needs of the company. And so that's when you work for a company, you have to take both into account. You have to say, what is it that the customers are looking for? And will they understand this new idea? And maybe that would make them stop buying the old machines. It's a real problem. And so that was a decision mistake. I hadn't thought the entire problem through about, suppose that we were successful, then what? Well, we failed on the then what part. Mm-hmm. There are lots of other things. One of the problems when you become a senior manager, like a vice president, you have many people working for you, and you don't really know what they're doing. And then when there are difficulties in a group and you're asked to solve them, you get different stories, and you don't know who's right and who's wrong, or which direction to go. And there have been a couple of instances there where I know I made the wrong decision today. I didn't know it at the time, obviously, but today I think I was wrong, and those were errors. But you know, a lot of errors come when you either, like in the first case, I didn't think the problem through all the way, or second, you don't have enough information, or you have to make a decision very quickly. But that's okay. What you have to learn is learn from those errors and learn how to change things so that in the future, you don't get into those difficulties. That's the important thing. Next.
Yeah, we have somebody called Stolen UX. I don't know where he's stored. When Don is here, we won't let you steal it. So he has a question about sustainability and circular economy. Okay, Stolen UX, I don't know your real name, so please first introduce yourself and go ahead and ask. Are you there?
I think I was speaking on mute. Hi Don. I'm Abhijit and friends call me Stolen. And I lead the UX studio at a Big Four consulting firm at the Middle East and North Africa region. So I got the opportunity to deliver circular economy and sustainability products and system of excellence for C-suite executives in the oil and gas domain. Now, you challenged designers to evolve from human-centered to humanity-centered design, addressing systemic, social, and environmental impact, given how executive always prioritize market conditions and their priorities, and this condition can shift rapidly. So we started talking business metrics and brand image emotions to C-suites now to influence them. Other than that, what strategies can designers use to build lasting executive buy-ins to align global environmental, social, maybe systemic initiative with core business objective?
The circular economy, for people who don't know about it, is to basically copy nature. That if you take a plant in nature, the plant grows and maybe it produces fruit, which is really the purpose of fruit from the plant's point of view is to make new plants. And so the seed is what's important, and the wonderful fruit that we eat is a way of attracting animals to eat it and carry the seeds to other locations. But the point is, the plant, first of all, reproduces itself this way, but second of all, when the plant's life is over and it dies and falls to the ground, and over time, everything in the plant becomes fertilizer for the next plant. And so it's circular, that it starts off as, as nothing, basically a seed, and grows. And then what it does is it spreads seeds and itself becomes fertilizer for new seeds and new plants. It's circular, no waste. And so can we manufacture things that have no waste or minimum waste? And more we are starting to see products that when you use the product and it's over, its lifetime is over, you can send it back to the company and they can take it apart and reuse the parts. And if even a aluminum can for drinks is one of the most circular of our items, because aluminum is easy to reuse. If you return the aluminum can to the factory, aluminum can be melted and made into new cans. But a problem with a normal product like a computer, an automobile, a refrigerator, mobile phone, is the company makes money by selling products. And what we say for the circular economy, we want you to sell less products. We want you to have a product that lasts longer and that it can be repaired so it stays longer. Or if you have a new upgrade, well, why can't, with a mobile phone, there's a new, better camera. Well, I can open the phone and take out the old camera and put in the new camera. And then I'll send the old camera back to you and you maybe can use the parts. It's a different kind of business. And the company will say, now I'll tell you a different story. If you work for a company and you think that they are destroying the environment by mining and getting materials and manufacturing, and you say, you're doing this wrong, and the circular economy means you don't have to destroy the environment so much and so often. Well, don't go to the executives and tell them they're doing something wrong. It won't do any good because they don't want to know. I mean, they do want to know. A good executive wants to know what's wrong, but what they want to know is what should you do? What should we do instead? And don't tell them you should do the circular economy instead, because they will say, well, yeah, that's all very nice, but if I were starting a new company, I could do that. But today we make our money by selling products. And you're saying, no, we should sell less products and make them last longer. So how will we stay in business? So you have to have an answer to that. Now, there are answers. Let me talk about the mobile phone. I suspect, tell me if I'm wrong about where you buy phones in India, very few of you go and pay the full price of the phone. You go to the phone store and they will show you all sorts of different models, and they tell you how much every month you would pay for it. And that when you pay, you're paying not only for the phone, but they will take care of servicing it, and they also provide the wireless service. You're subscribing to the communication system. So we think of the phone as a product, and you think you're buying a phone, but you're not. You're paying a monthly fee for a service. And that's the answer to this problem. You have to switch over from selling products to selling services. Now, every product is really a service. An automobile is nice to have and nice to look at, but what I really like about the automobile is it gets me from one place to another. I can carry many people, I can carry groceries, I can carry packages, and I can go where there's no public transportation. It's a service. A camera. it's nice to look at, but the real point about the camera is it offers me services. Namely, I enjoy the photographs. And so is there a way of selling your product as a service? Now, Hewlett-Packard inkjet printers, they don't make the money by selling the printer. They make their money by selling you the ink. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to change it into a service that you buy the printer from us and then you pay us a small amount of money every year, every month, and we will guarantee you the paper you need and the inks you need. And so you don't have to worry about that anymore. And I think we have to work and be innovative in the business model, because unless you present the full solution, you will not make, the company can't do it. And if you do present the full solution, they may say, oh, that's interesting. This came from the design group. And it will also help raise their evaluation of what design can do for a company. Does that help you?
Yes. I have a follow-up question regarding the same thing.
Abhijit, sorry, for the benefit of time and to give more people a chance. Don, you only have 15 more minutes, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, roughly.
Yes. Sorry, we have time for one more question.
Well, one or two.
Yeah, one or two is good. Yeah, there's so many people here. So, Lukman, I see you have a question. You can go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Norman. I have a question regarding accessibility. I recently read an article by Jacob Nelson that accessibility will die on behalf of AI agents. And what is your thought on AI will how affect accessibility?
Let me understand the question. It's about accessibility. Can you restate?
Yes. So he is asking about a paper that actually came out from Jacob Nielsen, suggesting that the accessibility will eventually be fully handled by AI agents. So he is curious, how do you see the future of accessibility and usability being impacted by AI? You have covered a bit, but again, since the point is about accessibility, you can take that up.
I think Jacob is wrong. Look, the AIs are moving, and one of the new areas that they're moving into is agent-based systems, where they don't just answer your questions, but they will do tasks for you. And if an agent does a task for me, the accessibility issues go away. But what kind of tasks is it going to do for me? I mean, I still have to live in the physical world. Many of the devices I have, in fact, probably the device by which I talk to my AI is a physical device. And I still have to make sure it works with people who may not have use of both of their arms, may not be able to see, may not be able to hear. And by the way, this is everybody, because sometimes when it's noisy, I can't hear. And if I'm carrying groceries or a baby, I don't have arms. And so, my car, when I carry groceries to my car and I want to put it into the car, the trunk, we call it trunk in the United States. Well, it turns out my car allows me to go up the back of the car and just kick my foot forward fast, and the trunk automatically opens up. That's nice, because I don't have to have arms in order to open the trunk and put down the. So I feel that the importance of accessibility will always be with us, because there'll always be new problems, and we need people. People have to be able to see, have to be able to hear, have to be able to understand, have to be able to manipulate. And some of the existing systems that they will control by voice, assuming that you can talk, or assuming you can talk in the language it understands or with the accent it understands, then the accessibility problems go away or are simpler. But that doesn't mean that all of the problems have disappeared, we will always have accessibility issues. One someday when you get old, or if you get injured and you need a wheelchair, you got to make sure your place you live can accommodate them. And wheelchairs, I think more and more, one of the interesting technologies is lightweight batteries coupled with small, powerful motors. And pretty soon we're going to have almost everything have motors in it. I mean, my car has probably 100 motors or more. And the wheelchairs will have motors, and more of them do have them. And more of the devices for the handicapped are motorized. But that causes other issues. Can you actually do the tasks you want to do? Can you control the system in a way that's useful for yourself? So anyway, I don't want to go on forever, but believe me, accessibility will be an issue. It will change as our technologies change and the kind of devices we have change. Then the details will change, but the need will stay the same.
Oh,
Okay, so there is one interesting question from Eliphaz Yeshudas. You can go ahead and ask that.
Okay, hi. So my question is that recently Shopify removed the title UX designer and said that if you design, you are a designer, and if you write, you are a writer. Similarly, the Shopify has removed the name you have given birth to. So what's your thoughts about it? And as the industry moves towards more generalist roles, does it make the design world, does it make it for the better of the world, or risk of diluting the values of specialized expertise?
I'm sorry. I guess can you rephrase the question, Aaron?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I'll do that. So he's saying that Shopify removed the UX designer title from its role, and the CEO tweeted that if you can design, you are a designer, and if you write, you are a writer. It's simpler and better. So what are your thoughts on this shift as the industry moves towards more generalist roles? Does this make the design world better, or risk diluting the value of specialized expertise?
Yeah. By the way, the problem I'm having with understanding the questions is the sound. I think it has to do with the microphone system, so you're using that. Some sounds are clearer than others. Yeah, I don't like to characterize people by the title of what they do. What I worry about with people is not what title they use, but what they accomplish. So, I got asked once. It was a big meeting, and I think it was in China, and I was listening to the speaker, who was also a friend of mine, and he said something, and I must have made a face or something, because he interrupted his talk to say, "Don Norman, why are you a designer? What have you ever designed?" And it's true, I'm not famous for things I've designed. The main thing that I'm famous for are doors you can't open. But my answer was that I'm an educator. I design designers. I help to train designers and so on. And so I think to the question, I mean, I'm also a writer, yes. But I don't know how to characterize myself. When people ask me what I do, I don't know how to answer the question. What am I good at? I don't know how to answer the question. But I wouldn't worry about what name you call people. It's a problem, because if you want to get a job, you have to say what you're good at, and you have to spell out the items. But if you're worried about the single word, a word or two that you want to use to characterize a person, they're almost always incomplete or wrong. I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm much more in favor of, I don't like titles. I like what people accomplish. That's why we give our prizes, not to people who are trained in design. We say, we don't care how you're trained. We tell the educational groups, we don't care if you're a university or school, or maybe just a group of people who get together to help teach other people. We care about what people do and not what they call themselves.
Okay, great. I think we have come to an end of the session. Cool. Yeah, we only have like 5 minutes. I think it's better we stop. I'm so sorry for the rest of the folks who have questions. Maybe another time. So we'll have to wrap it up. So Dawn, before we wrap this session today, is there one final thought you would like to leave us with? Maybe something you hope this next generation of designers will carry forward?
Yes, because the world is a mess today, and it's people my age who caused it to be a mess, and it's people your age that will help improve things, and you can do it. I think you should also try to get educated in the humanities. If you want to learn about people, for example, don't study psychology or sociology or anthropology. Study novelists, somebody who writes books about fiction books about people, because they have to understand people. If you go to a psychologist, they're all very specialized. They'll tell you about this little thing about people, but you want to know how people really behave. So you should first of all learn more about the world, and you should broaden your reading and learn about as much other topics as you can. And for that matter, make sure you talk to people you disagree with, because they're real people too, and we have to deal with people who have other beliefs than we do as good designers. And so I think design is very powerful and can be one of the most powerful disciplines, because we combine knowledge of technology and knowledge of construction and building and creating, designing, programming, with, again, a focus upon the quality of life for people. And that makes us unique. And so we're not specialized, because when you build something, you have to be a generalist, because you have to know enough about other fields so you can bring in the specialties. You get the specialists in each of the different fields to help you to make sure that your design is good and effective. But it's the generalists who actually put it together and make it work, and that's what a good designer is. And that could be you.
Beautiful. That's great. Thank you. Cool. So it's time for me to conclude. So thank you, Dawn, so much for being here with us today, and for sharing not just your insights, but being very honest, your stories and your challenges to with all of us. It's not every day that we get to learn from someone who is not just seen the evolution of design, but has shaped it. And thanks a lot, Dawn. And then on to Surabhi. Thank you for adding such depth and thoughtfulness to the discussion. And it's been a joy co-hosting with you. And so thank you, Surabhi.
Thank you so much, Arun. Same here.
Yeah. And the biggest shout out should go to the people who made this happen. I know, Dawn, the moderators were emailing you all the time, and Mishal, Hafiz, and Fuad, you three are the heartbeat behind this community. What you are building here in a small space called Calicut, it's quite big. And Dawn, we highly recommend and request you to visit the south side of India, further down from Bangalore. It's beautiful here. It's not that it's like five hours from Bangalore. So please do visit this place as well. So shout out to Mishal, Hafiz, and Fuad. They're not just organizers. They are young designers and design enthusiasts themselves, still learning, still growing. But what is truly inspiring is that even as they learn from the best, they are creating spaces like this so others can also learn too. So they want everyone, especially those like them, to be part of the same pursuit. So I hope all of you continue to cheer them on, collaborate, and help grow this community together. And then moving on to the amazing volunteers, thank you for holding everything together with care and calm. Sessions like this don't happen without these invisible hands behind the scene. And finally, to everyone who joined us from across the globe, thank you for being here, for listening and asking questions, and for just being part of this shared learning space. And I'm asking, I'm apologizing again for not giving you a spot with Dawn. I'm so sorry for that. But again, thank you, Dawn. Thanks a lot for your time. I think we are right on spot. It's 11. It's going to be 11:30 here. I think we stopped right on spot. And thank you for extending the session for 30 minutes. So until next time, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye. Aruna, great job.
Okay, Anil. You were there.
അത് നിർത്ത്, YouTube നിർത്ത്.
Great job. Great job.